Morning, everyone. Let me welcome you to Medzone African Motives, whereby we are going to look at Economics Grade 12 Paper 1. So we are going to do the revision of a Term 3 paper, which was written in September 2024. It was written in September 2024. So this paper was written in KwaZulu-Natal, KwaZulu-Natal province. So moving on, as you can see, it's the Economics Paper 1, Preparatory Examination, September 2024. So the marks that are allocated are 50 marks. That is the total marks of this paper. So you are to take how many? 2 hours. You are to take 2 hours. So now let's quickly go to the instructions. Let's quickly go to the instructions. So it's very important that you don't attend to any question without reading what? The instruction. You are to go through these instructions. They are very important. So the very important instruction that I will just go with you by now is that the section A is compulsory. So this one you are to attend it. It's compulsory. Section B, you are only to answer how many? 2 questions. 2 questions of the 3 that are provided. But as you're going to answer the 3 questions, because we are trying by all means to prepare you for the exams. So the section C that you are going to attend it later on, you are only going to answer 1 question, though as you are going to attend them both. So that is that. So the other important instruction that I want us to take you to is the numbering system. So people get or lose marks because of this numbering system. Don't take it for granted. Like as it says, number the answers correctly according to the number system used in this question paper. We cannot write 1.1 and then you write 1.14 and then you're going to write 1.12 after 1.14. So it means you're going to lose marks. You're going to lose marks by failing to number your answers correctly. So that is that. Another important instruction is the one for number 5. Number 5 instruction as well. Read the questions carefully and start each question on a new page. Make sure that a new question you start it on a new page. You start each question on a new page. So the other instructions are also important. You go through all those instructions. So let us quickly now rush to the section A. Section A, here we are on section A. So our section A is what? Compulsory, so we have to attend to it. Question 1, so the marks that are allocated for these sections are 30 marks. Then you have to take only 20 minutes to answer this question. So now we go straight to 1.11. So this one, question 1, one is multiple choice. 1.1 is a multiple choice questions. So it says various options are provided as possible answers to the following questions. Choose the answer and write only letter A, D next to the question number 1.1 to 1.18 in the answer book, e.g. 1.1 D. So now we are going to 1.1.1. 1.1.1 says an open economy. An open economy is best described as dash sector sector economy. An open economy is best described as dash sector economy. So we are given 4 options. So we have to choose the best one out of 4. So the correct answer is C. An open economy is best private as a 4-sector economy sector because it includes what? It includes household, because it includes household, businesses, government, and a foreign sector. And foreign sector. That is why we call it what? A 4-sector economy. So now we are moving on to 1.2. 1.2 read as follows. 1.12. A policy that attempts to stimulate economic activity is called dash physical money. So we are given 4 options. Then we have to choose the best answer. That is also again C. Expansionary. Expansionary. It is expansionary because it increases government spending. It is an expansionary because it increases government spending. Because it increases government spending and or reduces tax or reduces what tax reduces taxes as to boost demand and economic growth. So that is that the correct answer is expansionary. Now we are moving on to 1.13. 1.13 read as follows. The exchange of goods and services across the borders is called dash trade. So we are given 4 options and the correct answer is A. The correct answer is A, international trade. It's international trade because it involves buying and selling between countries. Because it involves buying and selling between countries. Between countries, not just within one country. So that is the reason why we go for A. So the correct answer is A. So now we are moving on to 1.14. 1.14, goods which are not possible to exclude free riders once they have been provided are called dash goods. So they are called what? Collective goods. They are called collective goods. The correct answer is D. The correct answer is D because everyone can use them without paying. Because everyone can use them without paying. So that is the reason why it is called what? Collective goods. That is why it's called what? Collective goods. Because everyone can use them without paying. Like national defense or street lighting. Everyone can use it without paying. That is why it's called what? Collective goods. Now let us move on. The amount of money paid into the business to reduce the cost of production is called what? That is 1.15. It's called the subsidies. The correct answer is B, or the four options that we are given is called what? Subsidies. So because subsidies lower the cost of producing. So because the subsidies lower the cost of producing goods. So it is because subsidies lower the cost of producing goods. Lower the cost of producing goods, trying by all means to encourage more output or making products cheaper for consumers. So that is why it is what the correct answer. So now let us move on. Let us move on to 1.16. Let us move on to 1.16. So here we are on 1.16. It reads as follows. The growth and development policy that aims to eliminate poverty and reduce inequality by 2030 is called what? That is 1.16. So we are given four options and the correct answer is National Development Plan. The correct answer is National Development Plan, because the national development is a long-term government plan. It's a long-term government plan that sets targets for economic growth, social equity, and poverty reduction. So that is why we are saying is what? National Development Plan. National Development Plan, because of NDP, is a long-term government plan. This what? It is a long-term government plan. Long-term government plan. So that is the reason why, because NDP, which is National Development Plan, it is a long-term government plan that sets the targets for economic growth, social equity, and poverty reduction. So that is the reason why we can go for A. Now we are moving on to 1.17. It concerns the process of transforming natural resources into final goods. So 1.17, we are given four options there. Then we have to choose the best answer, which is D, integrated manufacturing strategy. Integrated manufacturing strategy, because it focuses on industrialization and value addition. So it is because it focuses on industrialization and value addition. That is whereby they are going to turn raw materials into products that can be sold domestically or internationally. So we go for this integrated manufacturing strategy because it focuses on industrialization, because it focuses on industrialization. That is the reason why we go for it, because it focuses on industrialization and value addition. That is whereby they are going to turn now raw materials into products that can be sold domestically or internationally. So that is the reason why the integrated manufacturing strategy is the correct answer. Now we are moving on to 1.18. 1.18 reads as follows. Production as an economic indicator relates to, then we are given four options, and then we have to choose the correct one. The correct one is B, real gross domestic product, GDP, real GDP, real GDP, because production production measures the total output of goods and services. It is because of what? It is because production measures the total output of goods and services. Of goods and services. Measures the total output of goods and services, which is what the real GDP calculates, adjusted for inflation. So that is that. So now we are going to move on to 1.2. Going to move on to 1.2. 1.2. 1.2. So here is our 1.2. So here is our 1.2. Then we have to attend to it. So 1.2 read as follows. Choose the description from column B that matches the item in column A. Description is in column B. That is going to match what? The item in column A. Write only letter A to I next to the question number 1.212, 1.28 in the answer book. Then there's a given example 1.29J as an example. That is how we are going to answer this section. That is a matching items. That is a matching items. So without wasting time, let's quickly go to our matching items. Then 1.1 says cash reserve requirement. So cash reserve requirement. So we want to see the description that is going to match cash reserve requirement. So as we go, you can see the I is going to be the correct answer to match what? Our cash reserve requirement. So it means now we are going to write what? I in our answer book. When you are on your answer book, you are going to write what? I. So the correct answer is I. Why is it I? Is because the cash reserve requirement is the minimum amount of money a commercial bank must keep with the central bank, trying to control money supply. So for example, we can say banks cannot lend all deposits. Some must stay with the central bank. So that is why it's called what? Cash reserve requirement. That is the minimum amount of money a commercial bank must keep with the central bank. So that is that. Hope we get on another. So now we come to trade balance. That is, so now we want to know the description that is going to match this item in column A, trade balance. So now moving on, trying to see which description is going to match that item. We can see now the correct answer is D, which says the value of tangible export minus tangible imports. So it means now we're going to have what? D. That's what? Our correct answer. So that is D. So that is because the difference between a country exports and imports, that is a difference between country imports as well as exports, or the difference between country exports and imports. That is whereby when if exports are higher than imports, let's say the country has what? A trade surplus. That is that. So now we are moving on, and then we come to the ad valorem. The ad valorem. So now we want to see the description here in column B that is going to match our ad valorem. So that is E. The correct answer is E. So the ad valorem is a tariff charged as a percentage of the value of imported goods. So the correct answer is E. That is that. The correct answer is E. That is, we are talking about a tax or duty calculated as a percentage of the value of goods. For example, a 10% of ad valorem tariff on imported cars. Hope you understand. Let us not waste time and then come to 1.24. A draw. Now we are coming to a draw. So, a draw, we want to see the description that is going to match it. Now we move on to see which description is going to best match on 1.24. Then we can see that is age. We can see that the age is the correct answer. Because when we talk of a drop, we are talking about the lowest turning point in a business cycle. The lowest turning point in a business cycle. So that is age. The correct answer is age. So the correct answer is age because we are saying it is the lowest point in the economic cycle where economic activity is at its weakest. That is a drought. That is a draw. Example, during a recession, GDP is at a draw before recovery. So that is that when we are now at a draw. Now we are moving on to 1.25, expanded public work program. Expanded public work program. So now we want to see this description that is going to match that, 1.25. So as you're moving on, we can see that the F is the correct answer. Nationwide government intervention to create employment using labor-intensive methods. So that is where we're saying now the F is correct answer. Because when we are talking about expanded public works program, that is a government initiative that creates jobs through public projects. So the government is going to create jobs through what? Public projects often reduce what? Unemployment. Often reduce unemployment. For example, we can talk about road construction or community development projects employing locals. We call it what? Expanded public work program. Now we are moving on to 1.26, economically active population. Economically active population. So 1.26. So the correct answer is A. That is all persons between the age of 15 to 65 who supply labor for productive activity. So the A is the correct answer. The correct answer is A. A is correct answer when you're talking about economically active population, people who are working or actively seeking work. So, like we've said, now we come to 1.27, regional development. Regional development. So we want to see the description that is going to match that item. So we can see now B is a correct answer. It is aimed at promoting investment projects in underdeveloped areas where unemployment and poverty are high. So that is 1.27. The correct answer is B. The correct answer is B. So where we are talking about regional development. So those are the efforts to improve economic conditions in a specific areas or regions. Example, building industry in a rural province to reduce urban migration. So that is why we are calling it what? Regional development. So just build what? Industry in a rural provinces as to avoid these people who are migrating to the urban areas. Now we are moving on to 1.28. 1.28. Economic growth. Now we want to know the correct answer, and the correct answer is G. The correct answer is G. Increase in the country's production capacity. So the correct answer is G. That is increase in the production of goods and services in the country. So that is that. Now we are to move on to 1.3. We are to move to 1.3. 1.3 read as follows. Give one term for each of the following description. Write only the term next to the question number 1.31, 1.36 in the answer book. The abbreviations, acronyms, and examples will not be accepted. So that is that. So we are to attend this question, and you're going to give one term. The rate at which commercial banks borrow money from the SARB is called what? It's called what? Repo rate. It's called repo rate. So that is the rate at which commercial banks borrow money from SARB. 1.32, a debt security issued by the states in exchange for loans which are redeemable at some future date in the long term. So now we want the term, the umbrella term for this, that is government bonds. Government bonds. So government bonds, that is a debt security issued by the state in exchange for loans, which are redeemable at some future date in the long term. Now, the goods that are characterized by non-reliable as well as non-excludability. So what is the term there is what? Public goods. Public goods. Now moving on to 1.34. 1.34. A plan to bring disadvantaged groups to participate in the mainstream of economic activities. That is broad-based black economic empowerment. Economic empowerment. Power. So that is correct term to use. When you bring those disadvantaged groups, previously disadvantaged groups, to participate in the mainstream of economic activities. A limited supply of goods and services to reduce the imports. This is what? A quota. This is called quotas. That is here, when you are trying to limit the supply of goods and services to reduce what? The imports. The price of one currency in terms of another, that is exchange rate. Exchange rate. So that is all about the section A, and you are to get how many marks? 30 marks. So that is that. So now, without wasting time, we are to quickly go to section question 2. We are to move on to question 2, which is section B now, which is section B. So we are on section B. So we are to attend our section B. For question 2 reads as follows. Answer any 2 or 3 questions in this section in the answer book. Like I said, as you're going to answer 3 of them. So question 2, macroeconomics, you are to get 40 marks and you are to spend 30 minutes on this question. So now let us move on to question 2.1. Answer the following questions. Name 2 types of business cycle. Name 2 types of business cycle. So you have to name 2 types of business cycle, which you can talk about kitchen cycle. You can also talk about genre. You can talk about, sorry, let me write it correctly. You can talk about genre cycle. So with kitchen cycle, it means what? Short term, that is about 3 to 5 years. This one is a short term. The short term, that is 3 to 5 years. So example, we are talking about, let's say, seasonal demand changes in retail sales that cause more and up and down movements in the economy. But genre, we are talking about a medium term. So this one, we're talking about medium term. We can talk about 7 to 11 years. Example, a period of investment growth followed by a slowdown like the global financial crisis in 2008. So that is that. But all you were asked is to name 2 types of business cycle, kitchen cycle and genre cycle. The other ones you can talk about, the gooseness. You can talk about the contractive cycle. So those are the other cycles. So now let us move on to two point one two. 2.12 read as follows. How can double counting be avoided when calculating what? GDP, gross domestic product. How can double counting be avoided? So we can avoid double counting by subtracting immediate goods from the value of final goods. We can say by subtracting inter intermediate goods from the value of final goods of final goods. That is that 2.21. Also, we can again count only final production in each sector. That is where we are saying counting only final production in each sector. In each sector. So that is that. That is how we answer the question where we can say how the double counting can be avoided. That is subtracting intermediate goods. Subtracting intermediate goods from the value of final goods. This is, for example, only counting the price of bread, not adding the flour used to make it. Or you're going to do what? You're going to count the price of bread, not adding the flour that was used to make the bread. Hope you understand. So here, counting only final production in each sector, that is whereby now we can say we are going to record the sale of car at the dealership, but not including the tires separately. So that is how we can avoid what? Double counting when we are trying to calculate the GDP. So hope you get to that. So now let us move on. So now we are on 2.2. We are on 2.2, which says study the picture below and answer the questions that follow. So this is the picture that you're going to study. The flow of income. The flow of income. That is that. So here is the flow of income, as you can see, whereby we have factor market, we have financial intermediaries, we have businesses, we have households, we have what? Product market. That is that. So as you're studying it, there are the questions that follow that we are to attend it today. So the first question says 2.21, identify the primary participant in the diagram above. Primary participant in the diagram above. So what is the primary participant in the diagram above? So the primary participant in this diagram is households. Is households. That is a primary participant in this diagram. So it is households, because the households provide factors of production and consume goods and services. That is that. That is why it is the one which is the primary participant. So we are talking about whether we can say a family providing labor weekly and buying grocery from the shops. See? So that is that. Now we are moving on. Name one factor of production provided by factor market. Provided by factor market. Name one factor of production provided by factor market. So that is that. So we are to name one factor of production provided by factor market. That is whereby now we're talking about what? A factor market. So this is our factor market. So we want to know the factor of production provided by factor market. So now we are to answer it. Question 2.2. So we can talk about labor. We can talk about labor. So as we know, laborers are workers that offer their skills and effort. That is that. Example, teachers providing education services. So that is that. We can even talk about capital, machinery, building tools, all those. We can talk about also entrepreneurship. So those people who start the business at the face of risk. So that is that. So, but now we are still labor. There are many. You can talk of capital. You can talk of as well as entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship. And also talk about raw materials. So now let us move on. Briefly describe the term circular flow. So now we are to describe circular flow. So circular flow, that is continuous flow of spending, income, and goods or service between sectors. That is continuous flow of spending, continuous flow of spending, income, and goods or services between sectors. That is how briefly we can describe the circular flow. Continuous flow of spending, income, and goods or services between sectors. Example, a worker earns wages, income, and spends money at a shop, spending. That is that. And shop pays suppliers and workers, that is income again. So that's what describe what circular flow. So now let us move on to 2.24. 2.24 says, explain the role of firms. The role of firms in the economy. Explain the role of firms in the economy. Roles of firms in economy. They pay tax. That is that. Pay taxes. They pay taxes. They also produce goods and services. Produce goods and services. So that is that. So they pay tax. Government provides social service. Government provides social services. Example, a company pays value-added tax, which helps fund public hospitals. You see, this is the role of firms in the economy. Produce goods and services, which is going to boost what? The growth. Example, Toyota AC producing cars that increase gross domestic product. So now let us attend to 2.25. 2.25. How can a foreign direct investment influence national income? Talking about what? How can a foreign direct investment influence national income? Foreign direct investment. So it means that it is going to stimulate economic growth by creating activity. It's going to stimulate economic growth by creating activity. By creating activity. So that is that. Example, we can talk about a foreign money company builds operations in SA. So that's that. Also creates jobs. Creates jobs. Creates jobs whereby now they are going to reduce what? Poverty. You know, when there is a creation of jobs, then the poverty is going to be reduced. Example, a new foreign-owned factory hires local workers. So it means that is going to reduce what? A poverty. Also improve balance of payments. Improve balance of payments. That whereby the international company sending money into South Africa for investment. That improves what? The balance of payments. So hope we are together on that. Hope we are together on that. So that was 2.25. Now we are to move on to 2.3. 2.3. Okay, we are on now question 2.3. We are on question 2.3 that we are to attend. And so now we are on 2.3. So we are given what? A graph that we are to study. We are given a graph that we are to study. As you can see that we have market for US dollars, exchange rate for US dollars, and then we have also the quantity of US dollars. As you can see that D, we know, stands for demand, and S is what? Suppliers. So now let's quickly go to the questions that are asked under this. It says, identify exchange rate system that is represented by the graph. Identify what? Exchange rate system that is identified by the graph. That is what we are asked. So that is 2.3 is a free floating exchange rate. Free floating exchange rate. The free floating exchange rate. That is the exchange rate system that is represented by this graph. So we know that a free floating exchange rate is a currency value that is determined by supply and demand. That is a currency value that is determined by the supply and demand. Example, if demand for rand rises, the rand strengthens against the dollar. So that is that. So now we are moving on. 2.3, which curve represent an increase in the demand for foreign currency? Which curve represent an increase in the demand for foreign currency? That is that. The curve that is showing increase in the demand currency. That is demand 1 to demand 1 curve. That is D1 to D1 curve. That is that. That is the correct answer. That is the correct answer. That is D1 to D1 curve. So as you can see here from the graph. So 2.33, briefly describe the term exchange rate. Briefly give a definition of exchange rate. So exchange rate definition means what? The price of one currency in terms of another. This price of one currency in terms of another. In terms of another. That is that. Price of one currency in terms of what? Another. You can talk about 18 rand. That means what? That is $1. Means you need 18 rand to buy US dollar. So that's what it means. Now we are moving on. What could have caused a shift of the demand curve to the right from DD to DD1? DD to DD1. DD to DD1. So that is that. That's what we are talking about. DD2, DD1. So we want to know the reason for shift in demand for that. So we want to know the reason for shift demand for foreign currency. What could have caused shift of demand curve to right from DD to DD1? So that means that more South Africans import goods from UCE. That means more South Africans import goods from UCE. Import goods from UCE. From USA, United States. How can the SARB intervene to devalue the currency? To devalue the currency. How are they going to intervene? Direct intervention. That is direct intervention. That is a direct intervention because they are going to buy foreign currency. Buying of foreign currency. Buying of foreign currency. That is a buying of foreign currency. So, and again, we can talk about what? Indirect intervention. We can talk about indirect intervention. Indirect intervention. That is that again. So with indirect intervention, you're talking about adjusting interest rates. Here you're going to adjust what? Interest rates. Example, lowering interest rates reduces foreign investment inflows and weaker rent. So that is that. So now let us move on to 2.4. 2.4 says, discuss the amplitude and length as features for underpinning forecasting in business cycle. So we have to discuss amplitude. So when we discuss the amplitude, we are going to say amplitude is we are going to say the amplitude. The amplitude is what is a height. It's a height difference between drop and peak, right? Difference between drop and peak. And peak. That is that. For example, we can talk about a big boom followed by a deep recession has a large amplitude. That's what it means. Also, we can talk about length. We talk about length. That is time from one peak to the next. time from one peak to the next. To the next. Or drought to drought. That is that. Example, we can talk about a short 3-year cycle is weaker, while a 10-year younger cycle is stronger and longer. So that is that. So now we are to attend to 2.5. We are to attend to 2.5. 2.5 is as follows. How can South African economy be influenced by the effect of international trade? How can South African economy influenced by the effect of international trade? So it can be influenced that whereby we can start by positives. Access to larger markets. Access to larger markets. Meaning to say, SA can sell goods like wine, platinum, cars to other countries. So they are going to access what? Larger markets. SA, South Africa can export cars to Europe. So that is going to bring in more foreign currency and boost what? Our GDP. That is that. Also job creation. Job creation. That is where we can talk about export industry, where we're talking about mining, manufacturing, agriculture, employ more people. So that is that. Also, we can talk about technology transfer and skills. Technology transfer and skills. So if technology transfer, that is where and skills by importing machinery and technology. South Africa improves what? Productivity by importing what? Machinery and technology. So that is going to increase their productivity. So that is that. For example, importing advanced medical equipment improves the healthcare services. So that is that. Also, lower prices for consumers. Lower prices for consumers. Lower prices for consumers. Lower prices for consumers. So imported goods increase competition and cheaper options. Example, imported clothing from China, cheap prices, affordable. So that is that. So now we are to move on to question 3. We are to move on to question 3. So question 3, it's about economic pursuits. That is our question 3, economic pursuits. Then you are going to be awarded 40 marks. You have to take 30 minutes. You have to spend 40 minutes on this question. Then it says answer the following questions. Answer the following questions. Name any 2 inflation rate indicators. So you have to name any 2 inflation rate indicators. That is producer price index. We are going to have producer price index, producer price index, and as well as consumer price index. Consumer price index. Consumer price index. So with producer index, this is whereby it measures the average change in prices of goods at the producer or wholesale level before they reach what? Before they can reach consumers. So it also shows how much producers charge for their goods. That is that. For example, if the cost of steel or fuel or maize rises, the producer price index will increase. This can later push up consumer prices. That is what it means when you're talking about producer price index. But with this one, consumer price index, the consumer price index makes us average change in prices of goods and services bought by the households. So it shows how much consumers pay in shops for services. Example, let's make an example of the bread. If bread or transport fares and electricity prices rises, it means the consumer price index will increase, showing higher inflation. That is that. Now let us move on to 3.12. 3.12 says, how can physical control be used to reduce the imports? How is it going to be used to reduce imports? That is that. So it means we are going to have the bans now. We're going to have bans whereby we can say bans or embargoes. This is where we can talk about complete prohibition. Complete prohibition, a complete prohibition of importing goods. Complete prohibition of importing goods, of importing specific goods, of importing specific goods. Let me show that it's for specific goods. Importing specific goods. Specific goods. So that is that, whereby we are saying that this complete prohibition of importing specific goods, example, being the import of chicken from countries affected by bird flu. So you see, that is that. Also, there are so many that we can talk about. We can talk about import quotas as well, whereby the government sets a maximum limit on the amount of certain goods that can be imported. For example, only 10,000 imported cars may enter South Africa in a year. So this is going to encourage buyers to purchase locally made cars. Hope we understand each other. Also, you can talk about licensing system when we're still under 3.12. Importers need special permission license to bring goods. If your license are granted, the imports decrease. So now let us move on to 3.2. 3.2 reads as follows. Study the table below and answer the question. Study the table below and answer the question. So here is our table, which talks about the BRICS expansion, which talks about the BRICS expansion. So what is this BRICS expansion? The BRICS expansion, it's all about a group of emerging economies that cooperate in areas like trade, investment, finance, and development. That's what it means when you're talking about this. What the BRICS. We are talking about. It is what a group of emerging economies. Economies that cooperate that cooperate in trade, that cooperate in areas like trade, that cooperate in areas like trade, that cooperate in areas like trade, in areas like trade, investment, finance, and development. And development. So now let us move on and then try by all means to go and answer the questions. To go and answer the questions. As you can see, here are the countries that are shown here. Here are the countries that are shown. So we want to now going to hear about them. The first question says, identify one of the new BRICS countries. Identify one of the new BRICS country. So that is 3.21. So you can talk about Egypt is one of them. Egypt. You can see Egypt is one of them. Egypt. You can also see Ethiopia is one of the BRICS countries. You can even see Iran as one of those. You can also not leave Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia. So those are one of the new BRICS countries. As we can see here from our table. You can see we have Egypt, you can see we have Saudi Arabia. Those are the new ones. Iran. We also have what, Ethiopia there. So that is that. So why do we say these are what are the new BRICS countries? Why do you say these are the new BRICS countries? When we are talking about Egypt, let's say, the reason why we can say it's one of the new BRICS countries because of the strategic location. Because of its strategic location, it controls Suez Canal, a vital global trade route. So it strengthens Africa's representation in BRICS alongside South Africa. So that is that. Also Ethiopia, the reason why it's now one of the new BRICS country, because of fast growing economy in Africa. It's one of the fast growing economy in Africa, the Ethiopia. So it expands BRICS presence in Africa by trying by all means to balance global representation. So that is why it also a new BRIC country. Same as what? Iran. Because as you know, the Iran is also rich in oil and gas resources. So this strengthens BRICS energy security. So that is that. That is why they are like that. So now also the Saudi Arabia, can talk about Saudi Arabia. That is a major global oil producer. So also it strengthens BRICS influence in energy markets. So that is that. So now let us move on to 3.22. Name the country that assumed BRICS presidency, the presidency in 2004. So name the country that assumed BRICS. the presidency in 2004. What is that country? So that country is Russia. That country is Russia. That is Russia. So hope we are still together. Hope we are still together. Now we have to move on. Briefly describe the term import substitution. So the import substitution, which is 3.23, this one, import substitution occurs when locally it occurs when locally produced goods replace goods that had been previously been imported. Replace goods that have been previously imported. So that is that. So that is that. Now 3.24. 3.24. Why is export promotion important for the South African economy? Why is export promotion important? Important for the South African economy. Why? Why is export promotion important for the South African economy? So it is important because the country achieves significant export-led economic growth. It's important because the country, let me just rub here. So it is important because the country is going to achieve significant export-led economic growth. So that is that. Also, you can say export promotion enlarges the production capacity of the country. So the export markets are much bigger than local markets. So that is that. 3.25, how can South Africa benefit from a member of BRICS? How are they going to benefit for being a member of BRICS? Remember, they became the member of BRICS in 2010. That's when they were declared now a member of BRICS. So how are they going to benefit from being the member of BRICS? That is the question, 2.2. So being a member of BRICS has enhanced South African position and influence as an important emerging country. So them being a member of what? Of a BRICS, that has enhanced South African position. So that has enhanced enhanced South Africa's position and influence as an important as an important emerging economy. Emerging economy. Also, BRICS membership gives us access to policy and technical expertise of larger and established economy. So BRIC membership gives what? Access to policy access to policy access to policy and technical expertise and technical expertise of larger and established economies. That is that. So now we are to move on to 3.3. Here we are on 3.3. It says, study the picture and answer the question that follow. So here is our picture, which says the inequality gap between rich and poor countries. So that is that. We want to see the inequality gap between poor and rich countries. So the first question says, identify now the economic concept that is depicted by the cartoon above. That is 3.3. So you identify the economic concept that is depicted by the cartoon above. We can see it is a north-south divide. It is north-south divide. North-south divide, as you can see, that is north-south divide. So that is that. Now we are moving on. Name one country that is a member of G7. Name one country that is a member of G7. So we are just to mention one country, that is United States of America. United States of America. So there are many. We can talk of Canada as well. Canada as well is a member of the G7. France as well. So we can talk of Italy, Germany, Japan, United Kingdom. They are also members of what? Of G7. Describe the term economic development. Describe the term economic development. So economic development is an increase in a country's real gross domestic product per capita over time. So we are going to say economic development is an increase an increase in a country, in a country real gross domestic product per capita. Product per capita over time. So that is that. Now we move on to 3.34. Why is South Africa regarded as one of the major polluters in the world? Why is South Africa regarded as a major polluters in the world? South Africa is regarded as a major polluters because the country relies on coal. It is because the country relies on coal. Country relies on coal for baseline electricity. For baseline electricity. Baseline electricity. And coal is among the 32 common fossil oils. So that is that. That is 3.34. Now we have to go to 3.4. We are to attend to 3.4. Now we are to attend to 3.4. We are on 3.35. How can countries of South Africa solve inequality gap? How can they solve inequality gap? So they can solve inequality gap by increasing the competitiveness of their manufacturing sector through diversification of the local industrial base. So they can do that by increasing the competitiveness. Competitiveness of their manufacturing sector. Of their manufacturing sector. Manufacturing sector through the diversification. Through diversification. Through diversification of local industrial base. Of local industrial base. Industrial base. So 3.4 discuss population growth. Discuss population growth and life expectancy as demographic indicators. So that is that. That is 3.4. We are to discuss population growth, life expectancy as a demographic indicators. So we can talk about population growth. Now we are to talk about population growth. We are to talk about population growth under 3.4, where we are going to say measuring population growth is important for delivering social service and for identifying the size of tax base. So we are saying measuring population growth measuring population growth is important. It's important for delivering social services, and for identifying the size of tax base, and for identifying the size of tax base. Size of tax base. So that is the total number of people paying tax. Also, we can talk about the South African population. We can talk about the South African population is currently around 63 million people. So that is under population growth. So we can also talk about life expectancy. So we can talk about the life expectancy. So we can write now life expectancy. Life expectancy, where we can talk about this is the number. This is the number of years a newborn. A newborn baby is expected to live. Is expected to live. That is that. So now 3.5. 3.5 read as follows: evaluates the success of Japan-South African partnership forum for the South African economy. So now we are to evaluate that. That is 3.5. That is 3.5. So 3.5. So we are to evaluate the success of Japan-South Africa partnership forum. So here we know that South Africa exports to Japan increased from the SA exports to Japan increased from 61 billion to 61 billion in 2011 to 150 billion in 2021. In 2021. So that means that last year, South Africa imported 34 billion worth of goods resulting in Japan. Resulting in Japanese 104 billion trade surplus in South Africa, favor with Japan. So another point now, we can talk about Japanese investors. Investors have committed to strengthening ties and economic opportunities. And economic opportunities. Including for small and medium businesses. So that is that. So now we are to move to question 5. Question 4. Question 4. So we are to move to question 4. So question 4, it's all about microeconomics and economic pursuit as well. So you answer, we are going to be awarded with 40 marks and you have to spend 30 minutes. So 4.1, answer the following questions. Name 2 problems of public sector. Name 2 problems of public sector. So we are to name 2 problems of public sector. So which are they? We are talking about price policy. Price policy, we can even talk about can talk about the privatization. Privatization also can be one of the problems of public sector provisioning. So lack of accountability can as well be that. Also problems in accessing needs. So they can be the examples of what public sector, the problems of public sector professioning. So they can be the problems of that. So now let us move on. Why is education an important indicator for the development of a country? Why is education? Education is important because it develops and capitalizes the country's human resource with necessary skills to foster economic growth. So that is that. We are saying education, it is important. It is important. It is important because it develops and as well as capacitates the countries and capacitates the countries human resource. Human resource with necessary skill. with necessary skills to foster economic growth. That is that. That is the importance of education. Now we are to study the following cartoon and answer the questions that follow. So you can see we have this bus. We have these two people. But let's quickly go to questions so that we can answer the question looking at the cartoon. Name the phase of the business cycle that can be associated with high inflation. With high inflation, that is 4.21. That is prosperity. The answer is prosperity. 4.22. Identify one challenge faced by South African economy on the cartoon above. Identify one challenge faced by South African economy on the cartoon above. So if we can look at that cartoon, you can see there is what? Unemployment. There is unemployment. 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 Briefly describe the term recession. So recession is a decrease in economic activity. Recession is a decrease in economic activities. In economic activities. Activities for at least two consecutive terms, or at least two consecutive terms. Consecutive term. Consecutive terms. That is that. Explain the impact of high cost of food on the economy. High cost of food in the economy. So high cost of food will negatively affect consumers. So the high cost of food will negatively affect consumers. Affect consumers' buying power. Buying power. So their purchasing power is going to be affected if there is high cost of food. So that will affect their buying power as consumers will afford less goods. As consumers will afford less goods. So they will afford less goods and services, which in turn now reduce the standard of living. So that is that. 4.25. How can Reserve Bank use open market transaction to curb inflation? How can Reserve Bank use open market transaction to curb inflation? So the Reserve Bank must sell government bonds. Must sell government bonds. Must sell government bonds and securities. And securities on the open market. On the open market. On the open market. Also, the aggregate demand will decrease. The aggregate demand will decrease and negative the negative multiplier effect will kick in. The negative multiplier effect will kick in. So that is that. So now we have to move on to 4.3. 4.3. 4.3 study the following data. That is a data response. Study the following data and answer the following question. Service delivery protest in South Africa. Service delivery protest in South Africa. So here are the protest issues from media reported protest data. Protest issues from media reported protest data. We can see we have unemployment, 2.9%, roads, 3.6, other issues, 6.4, electricity, 8.9, and etc. So that is that. So here on the horizontal, we have 0%. Those are the percentage here. We are showing about the percentages. These are the percentages. So now let us move on to the questions quickly. So the first question for 4.3 is identify the percentage protest for water sanitation. Water sanitation, which is this one. So we are to identify what the percentage protest for water sanitation. So you can see it's what? 11.5%. As you can see there is what? 11.5%. So now you are to answer it. 11.5%. Question 4.32. Name the organization that regulates electricity in South Africa. So that is a national electricity regulator of South Africa. That is National Electricity Regulator of South Africa. That is that. We're talking about NESA. 4.33, briefly describe the term urbanization. So now you have to describe what? The urbanization. That is the movement of people. That is movement of people from rural areas to urban areas. Rural areas to urban areas. So that is that. Now we are moving on. Why is load shedding a threat to the South African economy? Why is load shedding a threat to the South African economy. That is 4.34. So load shedding reduces the capacity of country to produce goods and services. So load shedding reduces it reduces the capacity of country to produce of country to produce goods and services which result in a negative impact, which results which results in a negative impact, which results in a negative impact on economic growth and employment, on economic growth, economic economic growth and employment. So that is that. How can the government reduce the number of service delivery protest? How can South Africa reduce the number of service delivery protest? So that is 4.35. 4.35. Now we are going to talk about how can the government reduce the service delivery protest. So the government can ensure that they hire more skilled and qualified employees. Ensure that they hire skilled, more skilled, most skilled and qualified employees. And qualified employees. And qualified employees to carry out service delivery. To carry out service delivery. To carry out service delivery. That is that 4.35. Also, the government can ensure that there are consequences for late service delivery among officials. You can say the government can ensure that there are consequences, that there are There are consequences there are consequences. There are consequences for lack of service delivery. For lack of service delivery. For lack of service delivery among officials. Among officials. So that is that. That is 4.35. So now we are on 4.4. 4.4, discuss injections and leachages in the circular flow. In the circular flow. So that is 4.4. 4.4. And this 4.4, where we are to discuss the ejections and leakages. We're talking about ejections and leakages. Ejections and leakages. Ejections and leakages. Because in the circular flow. Injections refer to an inflow of money into the economy. Injections refer to an inflow of money. To an inflow of money. Inflow of money into the economy. Into the economy. That is that. When injections increases, this can lead to an increase in employment opportunities. When injections increases, when injections increases, this can lead to an increase in employment opportunities. To an increase to employment opportunities. Employment opportunities. Leakages. Leakages. Leakages refer to outflow. Leakages refer to outflow of money from the economy. Of money from the economy. From the economy. Now let us on. Also, an increase in leakages has a negative impact on economic growth. This an increase in leakages increase in leakages, an increase we are saying an increase, an increase in leakages, an increase in leakages has a negative impact, has a negative impact, on economic growth, on economic growth. So that is that. So that is 4.4. So now we are to attend 4.5. 4.5 read as follows. How can a trade liberalization benefit developing countries? How can trade liberalization benefit the country? So that is that. So we are to attend to 4.5. 4.5. So here we are on 4.5. So now let us go and answer 4.5. Let me write 4.5, where it says, how can a trade liberation benefit developing countries? Trade liberation develop what? Developing countries. So this means that economies of scale can talk about economic of scale. Talk about economies of scale. Economies of scale. Where we can say free trade allows economies of scale to be maximized. Free trade allows economies of scales economy of scales to be maximized. To be maximized. To be maximized. Also, we can talk about choice. Can talk about choice. That is where we are saying free trade allows consumers the choice of what to buy from the whole world. This one we're talking about free trade allows consumers the choice of what to buy from the whole world, of what to buy from the whole world. From the whole world, and not just what is produced domestically. So that is that. So thank you very much for your time. This is the end of the presentation. So make sure that you are going to share with others as to prepare for the exams that you're going to sit on even in November. So this presentation is going to help you for your final exams as well that are going to be held in November. So thank you very much. Don't forget to hit the subscription button.